slowed down, confused, and even numbed. But we can't be defeated. We're built on a foundation that's strong, our mission unwavering, and together we'll beat as one.
Hey everybody, how are you doing? It's your boy DC, Thursday night host of Rogers Out of the Fog.
Right, you kind of got to make your own fun.
Yeah.
Which was a transition for me, going into the morning show here.
Proud. Keep doing the amazing work, will you?
They're learning about how to hire people.
20 years of local matter, so join me every Thursday night and see what's going on in the fog.
You're watching Rogers TV St. John's.
Hi, my name is Darren Hann, and welcome to Pocket Universe. On today's episode, we have artists John Woodman and Curtis Hynes, the owner and operator of Killick Coast Aquarium. So come on back after this. And I would like to welcome to the show Curtis Hynes, owner of Killick Coast Aquarium. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Quite the name.
It is.
We'll start with the name. How did that come up?
That's a common question. My partner and I, Natalie, took us a long time to figure it out, but we live on the water, looking at Bell Island.
Okay.
And we're on the Killick Coast. So looking at the mountains one day and looking at the coast, we kind of thought of putting the mountains together to form a fish.
Okay.
And there was the logo.
Yep.
And then came the name.
Cool. Now, you have a fish store which is very rare now, I find. A lot of one time, there was like years ago, there was a few of them around. But how did you get into a hobby of that?
A lot of us get tanks for our kids.
Yeah.
So that was our situation. We got a tank for the kids, something different.
Sure.
And like most situations, it turns into the parents get really into the hobby.
Yeah.
The kids kind of not so much.
No, that's right.
And it went from there.
What were your first fish?
Oh my goodness! Like everyone, we did it wrong.
We did it wrong.
Well, of course.
There's a wrong way.
There's an evolution to the education.
I'm going to stop you there. Go back and start at the beginning. What's the beginning?
So the beginning is just going to a store.
Yep.
And picking out a tank, and then going by some recommendations of the store, and just letting the kids pick whatever.
Okay.
And that started the first 10-gallon tank, which is quite a small, common starter tank.
Okay.
Few ups and downs, bit of learning, and then evolved into quite a large tank in our home, to now a store.
Now a store. So you went from a hobby to a store.
Hobby to a store. Still a hobbyist.
Still a hobbyist.
Hobbyist at heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of fish are we talking about? Is it freshwater fish or saltwater fish?
Right at the moment, we're purely freshwater. We have the ability to go to salt, so that's something. But freshwater mainly. Freshwater tropical.
Tropical, so it has to be warm water all the time.
Yes. There are some cold water species that we'll bring in as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if someone comes into the store, they want to get into the hobby of, is there a name on it? Or just
getting into the fish hobby?
Just getting into the fish hobby.
Yeah.
And so what would you guys recommend? Is there like a starter fish or a starter kit?
Well,
or
there
a
is.
Starter aquarium?
When Natalie and I were thinking about the business, we wanted to, of course, differentiate, do something just a little bit different.
Sure.
And we're mainly focusing on the education side.
That's good. Yeah.
We very much advocate to give the proper information at the beginning, to make sure that your entrance into the hobby is seamless.
Okay.
Right. So there are fish, different difficulties of fish, and then of course it's purely just not setting up a tank and having some fish. The hobby expands into aquascaping and different.
Which is what?
Designing tanks, aesthetically making them look how you want them to look. Different species of wood, different types of rock. There's actually different forms of aquascaping out there. There's many books out there, a lot of YouTube videos, things like that, to a lot of people that drive a lot of inspiration into the hobby. And it's It's quite remarkable. Some people might get a tank and may have 1 or 2 fish, but their focus may be on the aquascape. Plants as well, right? Plants are quite big in our store.
So mom and dad comes in the store. They got a couple of kids.
Yep.
They want to get a fish tank. Where do you go from? What do you suggest, and where do they go from?
Well, it's a conversation. We get to know.
Okay.
We get to know the customer. It's purely conversations of understanding what their comfort level is, their home, where they want the tank, their interests.
Okay.
And through a series of conversations, right, we kind of understand what their goal is, and we go from there.
What's the species of a starter fish?
My goodness, a lot of smaller tetras. Tetras, a lot of things like that. Yeah, that's mini starter fish. A lot of folks like to start off with guppies, platies, mollies. These are live bear fish.
Guppies. That's an actual.
That is.
That's an actual name.
It
of fish?
is. It's a guppy.
I always thought it was like just like a little slang term or something.
Oh, no.
Okay, so years and years and years ago, you'd go to a local retail store.
Sure.
You'd buy the fish bowl, the bag of the goldfish. You bring that home, and the poor little critter is gone in a couple of days.
Right.
How wrong was that, or how right was that, or was that how was that fixable so he would have lasted longer?
Right. Well, I like to say nothing is wrong.
Yep.
Right. We always can make improvements.
Sure.
There's a lot of things into the science, right? So there's things called a fish cycle we'll educate people on.
Okay.
There's a type of bacteria we use within the tank to protect the fish from toxic waste that they produce.
Right, yeah.
It's because it's an enclosed environment. You know, it's not the wild anymore.
Yeah.
There's filtration, right? Oxygenation, so the water is going to have a dissolved oxygen concentration.
Sure.
And gas exchange happens with the atmosphere and the water.
Yep.
And you have to break the surface tension of the water to promote gas exchange. So yeah, little fish bowl, little goldfish, no filtration, no cycling, and it doesn't usually work out well.
No, it doesn't.
No.
Okay, so mom and dad's in. They've decided on the fish. How do you pick the tank size? Because I heard you mention different sizes of the tanks. What determines the different size of the tanks?
Good question. So the way we look at it is the larger the tank, the easier it is to maintain and to establish.
Okay.
Yeah. So the solution is always dilution. Larger water volume to deal with.
Okay.
It's always easier. It purely comes down to their comfort level, because big tanks can be intimidating.
Okay.
Right? And the space in the home, because it's going to be a part of the home. It's a talking point for guests and things. It's aesthetically pleasing in the home.
That's right.
So it needs to fit the whole space. So yeah.
I'm taking the amount of water that's in the tank too, and how heavy that is.
Right.
Has the tank got to be put on certain type of platform, certain type of table? Is that educated into the owners, the new owners, and that, or is it just how do they determine where something like a tank would go?
Well, the tanks generally come with stands.
Oh, do they? Okay.
I mean, when you really think about it, water is 8.34 pounds per gallon. Fresh water.
Sure.
So we look at the placement of the tank, generally on, say, a 2-story home, and you have a main floor.
Yep.
Generally, the largest tank would be like a 6-foot tank, something like that.
Okay.
125 gallons. Sounds like a lot, but yeah.
So that tank would come with its own stand?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so they wouldn't have to worry about having it on a table that's strong enough to support it.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so we got the tank. What would go into the tank?
Well, there's lots of options between gravel, sands, different colors of gravel and sands.
So that would be the base?
Yeah,
the base
the substrate.
Okay.
Within the substrate, you could have actually a plant substrate or a soil. Depends on what type of plant you want to grow.
Okay.
In that, then we design and look for the look of a driftwood and placement of different rocks.
Okay.
The color contrast. Often people will put backgrounds or paint the back of the tank black and have a lighter color substrate. It's all depending on the look you want. So big thing is getting the tank established, getting the sand or substrate in there, and putting the driftwood and rock and going from there.
So everything that you put into it is something that you have to buy commercially that's been treated, because you mentioned driftwood a couple of times.
You don't have to. Good question. So a lot of the rock here locally on a saltwater beach, mainly metamorphic. It's great to just take it off the beach and give it a rinse and,
Oh, just give it a wash? And
any driftwood as well, you find, generally is fine. Yeah. No treatment really required, other than, making sure it's clean. And
even though the driftwood came more than likely through a good life in salt water. that want to hurt the water?
No.
Oh, wow.
Perfectly fine. Yeah.
Okay. So we've got our substrate down. We've got our plants and everything. Now, it's actually live plants.
Oh,
now.
goodness, yes.
So you're not only a fish person now, you're actually tending to live plants.
Yes.
And you have to know about the plants that are there.
Yeah.
So with the fish and the plants, are the plants determined on the fish's former environment?
Sort of. Certain fish can't be with plants because they're more omnivore and they will actually eat plants.
Okay.
There's some fish that we have that we called like a geophagus. It's called an earth eater.
Okay.
It'll sift through the sand and generally disturb the plants.
Okay.
And a lot of times when we're setting up an ecosystem,
Yes.
and these plants want to be in an environment where they feel safe.
Sure.
So we call it the decor or the aquascape. You want breaks and lines of sight and places for the fish to feel comfortable. So that's all, lends itself to a different scape and a different types of plants.
Okay.
There's different difficulties of plants as well. So there's plants that are very easy to grow. You just plant them in and the way they go. There's other plants that, need a little bit more encouragement, if you will.
Yep.
So we actually get into CO2 injection and different fertilizers. So I do that at the store for someone to come in and see, where we actually inject gaseous CO2 into the tank to promote plant growth.
Okay, so we've got our tank, we've got our fish, we've got our environment. Now, what I see a lot in fish tanks, I see a lot of mechanical stuff. You got, I guess, filters, motors.
Yep.
What would be in the tank besides the fish and the environment?
Well, a heater.
A heater, okay.
Provided it's warm water, not cold water, of course.
Yeah.
That'd be ambient temperature then. So a heater generally, and some sort of filtration. So it'll be the intake of a filter, either a hang-on back or a canister.
Okay.
So a hang-on back is purely something that hangs on the back of the tank, right? Canister is something that would sit in under. Okay, larger volume.
Sure.
But you'd still have the intake and the outtake of that. Sometimes you use things called power heads. So it's essentially just an impeller spinning to move water.
Okay.
We want to make sure there's lots of water flow for the environment.
Yeah.
Good concentration of dissolved oxygen. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Wow, there's
a lot to it.
There's an awful lot to it.
Yeah.
Now, besides fish, do you guys carry anything like, I'm just going to be like crabs, snails? Like,
yes, of course.
If someone wanted to get into something, but not fish, not that high maintenance, but like crabs, turtles, snails, stuff like that. Do you guys carry that?
Sure.
What can you tell us about that?
There's a lot of inverts, so that'd be inverts. A big tank, a popular item would be shrimp.
Shrimp?
Yeah, well, it's commonly called cherry shrimp.
Yeah.
They're called Neorchidinia. That's one species.
Okay.
Shrimp are very common. Lots of snails, lots of crabs, both fully aquatic and not fully aquatic.
Okay, how do you
So
mean? What do
we
you
could
mean by
set
that
up a
now?
tank in which it has to come out of the water.
Okay.
To a beach. So you could set up a tank with a water column, right, and a little beach for it to come out and get out of the water, get out of the water body and rest.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't live in the water all the time.
Right.
Live up on that.
Yeah.
What else would you have in the store besides that? Or is that basically it?
Well, another thing is food. So we sell a lot of dried food and frozen food.
Okay.
Right, so we have a big line of frozen foods and dry foods we promote.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of things we do advocate in the store is things that we have used ourselves and we
Sure.
can advocate for and promote.
Yeah.
Right, the frozen food line is quite big, from raw bloodworms to brine shrimp to squid.
Okay.
To something called silver sides, which is a small fish. So we have large predatory fish that require that. Yeah.
So you really got to be educated if you're going to get into a hobby. It helps a lot.
I feel that it's good for folks to just get into the hobby, even if you're fresh and with no knowledge. And it's a great evolution. It's a great hobby to continually learn. I'm learning every day.
Sure.
No one knows everything. I'm continually learning more about the hobby.
Now, where's the location of your store?
We're located at 15 McNamara Drive.
15
in
McNamara
Paradise.
Drive. Paradise, yeah.
Yeah.
And if someone wanted to contact you, what's your contact info?
They can find us, killicoast.ca is the website.
Okay.
All the socials, Facebook and Instagram, Killer Coast Aquarium. Yeah.
Very good. Well, sir, thank you for coming in today and telling us about the hobby of fish.
Yeah, everything.
Everything, fish, everything.
Fish keeping.
Aquascaping, the whole of it.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming in, and we'll be right back after this. And I would like to welcome to the show the gentle giant, John Woodman, artist. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
John, tell us about how you got into becoming an artist. Where did you get your first inspiration or decided that you want to become an artist?
Well, when I was in grade 4, my art teacher at the time, Joyce McKee, she seen the potential in my drawings.
Okay.
And she mentioned to my parents that I should take art lessons at that age. But back in the 60s, there was no such thing as art classes,
right.
Private ones. So anyway, over the years, I kept drawing, and when I turned, when I got in the 30s,
yeah,
I had to give up work because of my health.
Sure.
So I took the painting and the drawing as a hobby, and it's been 30 years now.
Well, that's great. Have you had any type of formal training, go to school for it, or any type of tutor or something?
Yeah, I was taught by the late Ray Miller from Placentia.
Okay, yeah.
And I did portraiture with him.
Portrait, okay.
For 4 years.
Oh, wow, okay, yeah.
And he passed on. He was a big inspiration, big help.
Okay.
In my art career.
And have you gone to any like artist schools or any type of like training like that?
No, I did do photography.
Oh, photography, okay.
Yeah, at what was then Lawrence College here in St. John's.
Okay.
I did quite well with that, yeah. And I used my photography to put into my artwork.
How do you put photography into artwork when photography is something that you take on a camera and painting is?
Well, the photographs is only a reference.
Oh, okay.
And I do freehand drawing.
Okay.
And it takes a lot of practice to be able to do that. A well-known artist in the Trinity Bay area, Clifford George.
Yeah.
He said that in order to become an artist, you've got to learn how to draw first.
Okay.
So I got that down pat, and then, well, here I am.
So you go out, you'll find something that gives you inspiration.
Yes.
And you'll take a picture of it, and then you go back to your studio, and then you'll do a sketch.
Yep.
And what happens from there?
I'll paint right on the canvas. I won't use a pencil.
Oh, okay.
For this, it's all freehand.
All freehand. Now, when you do, first of all, what gives you inspiration for something?
Well, off for Newfoundland.
Yeah.
The cliffs and the seascape.
Yeah.
I do a lot of seascape.
Okay, yeah.
And old houses and the history of Newfoundland is a big thing for me.
Okay. Now, speaking about your sketches, I've got some here. So, ones like this.
Yeah.
These guys. Now, are they just like freehand or?
They're all freehand.
And are you just from something from inspiration or just something you came up with?
Basically from what I've seen over the years.
What you've seen over the years, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to drop one now.
And I'm a big Toronto Maple Leaf fan.
Oh, okay.
And a few years ago when they were losing just about every game,
okay.
I would have the TV on.
Sure.
But I'd also have a sketch pad because I didn't want to see them lose.
Right.
But I wanted to hear the play-by-play.
Sure, yeah.
And some of my best work turned out while I was listening to the hockey.
So because the team were losing, you were doing better work.
Yeah.
So there's almost a little correlation there.
I was more concentrating on my work than I was on the game.
On the game. That's excellent.
But they're doing well now. So
They're doing well. Okay, well, you can't listen because you won't do some good work. Is that right?
That's right.
So, John, what different types of mediums do you use? Like what?
Well, I started off in oil.
Oil, okay.
But due to my health, I don't do that anymore.
Sure.
But mainly, it's mainly acrylics now.
Acrylics.
Yeah.
And for people that don't know, acrylics are water-based?
They're water-based.
Water-based, okay,
Yeah.
yep.
And it's a forgiving medium.
Oh, that's so.
Whereas if you were doing a watercolor,
Yeah.
watercolors, there's no forgiveness. If you make a mistake, you can't
Okay.
go back into it and cover it up.
Okay.
Whereas if you make a mistake in acrylics,
Mm-hmm.
you can cover it up.
Okay. Now, so you use your photography as, like, you go out and take a picture of something, a landscape, bring it back and do your work like that. Do you ever go out in the field, I'll call it, and like if you see something nice on the beach that you want to do, you go out and set up your easel and you'll
Do plein
set
air?
up, yeah, what's it called?
It's called plein air.
It's called plein air.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I do from time to time.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. And it's mostly looking for old buildings or an old boat that's decaying.
Sure, yeah.
And something that's not going to be there in a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes history.
That's right, yeah.
And that's what I want to portray in my artwork.
So what do you like doing, I'd say for lack of a better word, what do you like doing better? What do you like the best? Doing it from taking a picture with the camera and then doing it back at your studio, or actually going out in the field and do your free one?
Well, in the winter time, I'd rather work in my studio.
Sure, yeah.
But I enjoy meeting people.
Yeah.
And having people come up and having a look at my artwork and what I'm doing.
Okay, yeah.
That's total inspiration.
Now, we've got a couple of pieces here now that you did.
Yes.
They're very nice work. So where's this?
That's from Donville, Placentia Bay.
Donville, Placentia Bay.
On the lower road.
On the lower road.
Yeah.
And this is painted in what?
In acrylics.
In acrylics.
Yeah, it might look like oil, but it's the texture the way I painted it.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Now with this, is this something that you took a picture of first with your camera?
It was a photograph.
Photograph?
Yeah, and I did this back at my studio.
Mm-hmm. So do you sketch it out, like once you get the photograph taken, do you sketch it out and then paint it, or you just...
I draw it with a paintbrush.
Okay.
And then I fill in.
Fill in from there.
Yeah.
Cool. Now another one we have, I hope I'm holding these right. Not somebody will yell at me and say, Darren, turn it over. And where's this one to?
This is just a place basically out of my head.
Oh, out of your head? Okay. It's very nice.
This was kind of inspired by Clifford George. He's a well-known artist.
Okay.
And I really love his work.
Yeah. So if someone wanted to see more of your work, where could they go to see your work?
Well, they can look on my face page.
Okay, on Facebook, yeah.
Yeah.
And what are you listed on Facebook?
John Woodman.
Oh, just John Woodman.
Yeah, just add me as a friend.
Just add you as a friend, have a look at your work.
Yeah.
That's very nice. Now, one of the other questions I was going to ask you is about when you decide on doing a painting. Do you pick out the colors, or do you just sorry, not pick out the colors, but what gives you the inspiration for the colors to pick out certain ones?
Well, I'll put the colors on my palette.
On your palette, yeah.
And then I'll just smear the canvas.
Yeah.
And let it dry. Whatever I see in that after it's dried, that's what I'll put into it.
Put into it, yeah.
And I've been down on the beaches and watching sunset.
Yes.
And when the sun gets a bright orange,
yep,
and it reflects onto the cliffs.
Sure, yeah.
Like you can see here.
Oh, yes.
It's the reflections from the water,
yeah,
and the sky onto the cliffs.
Onto the cliffs, yeah.
And this is done with a palette knife.
A palette knife.
Yeah. It was all every bit of it was done with a palette knife.
A palette knife. Okay.
Instead of a brush.
So all this was done with a palette knife instead of a brush?
Yeah. And what you do is you get, say, three colors on your palette.
Yeah.
And you put them onto your knife.
Yeah.
And just blob them on anywhere on the canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go back in and with the knife you smooth it out.
Okay.
And that's how that one was done.
Wow. John, you do beautiful work, my friend.
Thank you.
Beautiful work. John, if someone wanted to contact you besides Facebook, how can they contact you?
Well, I'm usually at flea markets.
Yeah.
And I'll be at the Farmers Market in Freshwater, Placentia.
Okay, then.
Most of the summer on Sundays.
Okay, great.
And,
all right. Well, John, thanks for being on the show today.
thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
And
Good to see you again.
yes, we do.
And we'll be right back after this. I would like to thank John for coming in today and telling us all about his artwork, and to Curtis for letting us all know about the world of fish and aquariums. I also would like to give a big shout out to Amanda, the owner and operator of Heroes and Hobbies, for letting us come in and film for today. Make sure you come back and watch our next episode.
If you have a comment about this program,